Hello everyone and welcome to the Fintech Times. My name is Tyler and we're here today at MoneyLIVE and we are joined now by Monica. Monica, how are you?
I'm excellent, thank you.
Are you enjoying the summit in London?
I am loving the summit here in London, and it is so great to be able to be out here and engaging in person. And I've just literally flown in from Dubai where we had our Middle East summit. So after 2.5 years of not being able to travel, it is fabulous to be able to literally do in-person events.
It's really great to have you here with us, and this event has been firing off so far, and there's been so much being discussed. But before we go any further, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about who you are and where you've come from today?
Absolutely. As you mentioned, I'm Monica Hovsepian. I am the head of financial services industry at OpenText. I reside in Canada. And I have been with OpenText for 3.5 years now. I am a member of the Forbes Council, and I sit on the advisory and leadership board of George Washington University for their MBA program for their customer experience module.
Well, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. And I think today, we're talking a lot about Fintech and the wider Fintech ecosystem, and also taking an opportunity to look back to see where we're moving forward in the industry.
Right.
In the spirit of moving forward, when we look at things like Fintech and more specifically Paytech, how it's sort of been not born out of the pandemic, but it's definitely been shaped and exacerbated by the pandemic.
Right.
How do you see the events of the last 2 years having shaped and directed innovation in Paytech?
I think and nobody actually wants to look back to what happened in that March of 2020, in that heart attack moment, as we like to refer to it. But every engagement and every aspect of our lives literally changed. We all became more digitally advanced as a result of it, and we didn't have a choice. When that moment actually happened, and we all, no matter where we were geographically located, we all pivoted to our households. Our homes became our workspaces, it became our schools, it became our offices, our living rooms, our dining rooms, our bedrooms, completely changed. And as a result, we started engaging digitally. So every aspect of how we communicated also changed. Now, the brands that we associated with that provided us with those great engagements really bubbled to the surface. And those were the Amazons, the Netflix, the Googles, the Ubers, because they were single click, they were easy to follow, they were really intuitive, and the ones that weren't really failed us. So, as I was just referring to it during my presentation about less than an hour ago, the digital fakers versus the digital doers really came to the surface. From a payments perspective, for example, it all became the single click. We all stopped using cash. We were at the household level. It became utilizing as much credit cards as possible or debit cards. Debit card use actually went up. Card not present became a thing, which none of us were really utilizing as much. So all of those digital transactions started going up. How many of us had even heard about buy now, pay later? Now it is the phenomena.
It's really interesting that you talk about business intuition and how that has shaped what we know about the industry today. And I think my question to you here is, when we think about innovation, we think about how people have changed, but then if we take it back almost a step further, we think, well, why have they changed? Well, it's because there's different demands from the customers and different wants from the customers.
Right.
How do you see them having changed in the pandemic? How are they different to what they were before?
So as a result, we want things that are faster, more intuitive, quicker, seamless, right? And anything that we saw through other industries, we want them brought into our financial services industry as well. But at the same time, what we saw also happening as a result is some of the implications that came with it. So we saw bad actors come into the play as well. So cyber crime started going up as a result. We saw that as an industry, there has been over 1,300% increase in the criminality that also went with it. So it could be phishing attacks, it could be fraudulent attacks, it could be non-delivery of goods, and etc. that entered into the marketplace.
It's interesting that you talk about cybercrime going up, because it's often something that's not necessarily a direct result of, but we see the move to work from home, which is not just within fintech, it's within a lot of industries. But through a fintech lens today, I'm just interested to know what impact has work from home had on the business models of fintech and especially paytech?
Right. Now, as an industry, financial services has always been a face-to-face industry. It's never been one that was always predominantly work from home. But when that pandemic happened, even though financial services has always been considered a face-to-face industry, it was also considered to be frontline services. The lights needed to be kept on as much as possible. So branches, to a certain degree, needed to stay open, whether they were for shorter hours or with less staff. Having said that, everybody who was in offices pivoted to work from home. That introduced certain risk factors into the environment. But like every other industry and like every other person working from home, we were all exposed to higher risks of cyber attacks. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm constantly getting phone calls coming in notifying me if I'm interested in duct cleaning. I'm being notified that my social security card has been compromised and that I need to dial a certain number because there's a warrant out for my arrest. Now, if I was naive, if I was elderly, or if I wasn't in the field, I could fall for any of these scams. A lot of times we purchase from certain online stores, but they're fraudulent storefronts and we don't receive the packages. There were a lot of communications that went out through the FBI and etc. during Christmas time when Omicron was also at its height and we were all trying to stay home, notifying us that cyber crime was at its height again. So a lot of people also suffered through that because there was a lot of non-delivery of goods.
It's really interesting how you discuss the rise of cybercrime with the dispersing of consumer behavior. And I think you're dead on the money, but I wouldn't want this conversation to be exclusively through the consumer lens. In the same setting of the pandemic, how do you see business payments having been influenced?
From what we've seen in the past, on the consumer side, advancement has always been faster and there's been more investment always made on the consumer side. However, during the pandemic, the same workforce was also always home. They were also working from home. We also saw supply chain issues happening. We're reading about it, we've seen it. So on the business side, there needs to be a huge focus also put to modernize, to transform, and to bring a lot of the visibility that we've seen and the emphasis and the energy put on the consumer side, on the business side as well. So the same set of employees could have that visibility and faster payments. One of the things that I'm really proud to announce is the partnership that we have just announced about a month and a half ago with MasterCard Send, which as OpenText, we are the rails, integration rails for that. And that is not just for businesses, but also for consumers, for real-time payments in a secure manner, in a compliant manner as well.
Well, it's fantastic to hear about your new partnership with MasterCard. That's really incredible, and I think I think the future is only brighter for PayTech at the moment, and I think that's something you've really helped to accentuate with your comments. So thank you very much for.
Thank you very much for the opportunity,
Thank you
and
for
stay
taking the
safe
time.
and be good.
Yes, you too.